So in June this year, I celebrated 20 years from the date at which I opened my Betfair account. It seems remarkable that I've been going for 20 years. There's lots that's happened to me in that 20 years. I've achieved a lot of the things that I wanted to do, and then some. Met some really interesting people. So what are the key lessons that I've learned in that 20 years? If you're interested in trading with BetAngel, then visit our website where you can download a free trial of BetAngel Professional and BetAngel Trader. If you want to learn how to use them, then visit the Academy where we give you a detailed, structured walkthrough of each product. And if you're an existing user, then head on over to the forum where we have a load of files for you to download to customize and use within BetAngel. So it's been over 2 decades since I opened my Betfair account. And when betting exchanges came along, I saw an opportunity. It was the first time in history that you'd actually been able to bet into a market on a level playing field. You stood a really good chance of potentially winning. Didn't mean that you're guaranteed to, but I just thought, well, you know what? I think that I can achieve that, and I'm going to give it a go. I had no idea where it was going to lead. I've had a fascinating journey over those 20 years. I met loads of interesting people, and it's changed the way that I think not only about what you do in a market, but also the way that I live my life. So I thought it was worth sort of expressing some of that in a video to give you sort of some key hints and tips about the sort of stuff that I've learned and things that I feel are important. But not only should you look at these as things that you should see in the market, but you should also reflect on these as things that could probably change the way that you think about life, because it certainly changed the way that I think about all those things as well. And it's the sort of advice that I talk to and give to my children on their journey, wherever their journey leads them. So without further ado, let's find out what some of those key lessons are that I've learned over the last 20 years. So I think the first one and the most obvious one is that impossible is just a word. There have been so many things that I've done in the last 20 years that seemed just completely impossible to me. Certainly when I was younger, and even at the start of this journey, it just seemed completely off the scale of what was imaginable. However, the thing that you need to be aware of is that everybody's going to stop you. When I quit my conventional job with a wife and 3 children 20 years ago, everybody thought I was completely mad. And you can imagine the reaction that I got when they said, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "Oh, I've got this idea about betting on horses." You can imagine the reaction that I got. And there are only really 2 people that gave me any level of encouragement. And both of them were along the same lines of, "Well, you've always seemed to do okay so far, so I don't see what you've got to lose. And it's probably worth giving it a shot anyway." And I think the best bit of advice that I had was, you'll only ever regret the things that you didn't do. And that's what sort of spurred me on and gave me that final bit of motivation to go forward. You begin to realize that if you're going to do something special, there are a couple of characteristics that come out of the woodwork. One is that most people won't do it. Most people won't think that it's possible, which is why it's special. But also people won't want you to succeed. And, I'm grateful for the support that I get on this channel, because you obviously do get it. But you're a small minority of a much bigger slice of the pie, as it were. And the problem is that most people do not get it. And I thought sort of, 10 years into my journey, when I'd proved beyond all doubt that what I was doing was viable, that, that would change, but it never did. And right up until this day, every week, somebody is trying to pull you down or stop you or throw a spanner in the works somehow. And you realize that in fact, one of the key aspects of being successful at anything is passion, drive, perseverance, belligerence. You're really going to have to go through a lot to get to what you want to achieve, and you must not be deflected off of that path. You just have to keep on going, and sometimes that can be a little bit difficult, but ultimately if you're doing something for the right reason and you have those characteristics, then there's no reason why you couldn't achieve something that most people consider completely impossible. Thinking positively will bring you opportunities. Now, when I was young, I always thought that the Think Positive Brigade was a bit naff, really. It was a bit of psychobabble and all of that sort of garbage. But actually, I learned over time there was actually a really positive trait to all of this. And that is, if you, let me use a metaphor here. If you go up to a door, do you stand at the door and just sort of think, oh, it's a door? Or do you open the door and have a quick look around inside, figure out what's what's going on in there. And maybe you open that door and you will find other doors which you then open. That sort of exemplifies and it shows you what a positive attitude is. It's opening doors, it's looking for opportunities. Because there are problems everywhere. If you had to wake up every morning and think, I'm not going to do anything if I have a problem, you would halt almost immediately. It's not the fact that there are problems, it's how you overcome them that is critically important. But you'll be surprised how opportunities sort of come out of nowhere. So I was in the US once catching a cab. I was going to say a taxi. I could have said a taxi cab. And 3 of us all went for it at the same time. And we decided to share. And those 2 guys that I shared that cab with are great friends of mine now. And we've all shared some wonderful journeys together. But also, just being open and, looking for that sort of mindset will allow you to discover opportunities where most people will ignore or not even know that they exist. So I'm inquisitive, generally positive, not afraid of making mistakes, looking for things that could occur, just putting myself out there. And if you adopt that sort of positive attitude to everything that happens in your life, you'll begin to uncover all sorts of wonderful opportunities. So if there's one thing that I've learned, it's do simple things very effectively. Focus on getting it right, practicing it, improving, and then when you've mastered something, you can move on to the next thing. People spend too much time and effort endlessly qualifying what they're planning to do. This is another weird trait that you often see in the market. I took pity on somebody once and said to him, here's something, give this a try. And then he just kept coming back with one question after another and another. And it's like, I'm really regretting trying to help this person out. Because it's like, well, have you tried it? And it's like, well, I was thinking about this and I was a bit worried. And it's like, well, just try it. But he couldn't even step over that first line. And the fact is that when he did eventually step over the first line, he was overthinking it. And it's like, no, you're not going to win every time. Just it's a sequence of events. Just go in there, practice, work on making slightly better decisions, do all of these things. But he was unable to do it. And I think that, it's very underrated that you take something that's quite simple and then you just become good at it. That works perfectly well. There's a tendency to overqualify, overcomplicate, look at a few things, use that to make your judgment and then practice it becoming better. Sometimes it really is that simple. So if you're trading any market, whether it's financial, betting exchanges, you're doing anything that involves taking risk and potentially getting a payoff and a reward, there are 3 pillars to trading that are critically important. Maybe worth me doing a video entirely on this subject. I think it's a key aspect. But basically, most people approach trading from a strategy viewpoint. They will go into it and they will sort of say, what makes money? What can I buy? Who can tell me what makes money? But that's actually only a tiny slither of what you need to be looking at. You have to be looking at money management, you need to be looking at strategies and tactics, and you need to be looking at psychology as well. And all of those 3 things are key components. If you're missing one of those out of the mix, then you're potentially going to run into problems. So money management is about stake size, how you increase your stake, the sort of stakes you're using, what your profit you're potentially aiming for. This strategies and tactics side, you notice I've split it into 2. Most people are sort of saying, I want to lay the draw, for example. But nobody seems to talk about any of the depth behind that. Okay, you've got market selection, which is a tactic. It's not part of the strategy. But you've also got how you're going to do it, when are you going to do it, how are you going to put the order into the market, why do you think that you're going to do better than other people? So you've seen me produce material and stuff, giving you clearer and clearer direction on what you should be looking for. And within BetAngel as a product, you can actually see that we're giving you the framework in which to produce the trade. So it's the execution of that trade that is quite important as well. And that's why I say strategies and tactics, because the 2 go together, but they are separate things. And if you just have a strategy, how are you going to beat other people using the same strategy? That's where the tactical side comes in. But also psychology, your own internal psychology. One thing I've learned is people are very different from each other. They all have different life experiences, which give them different sort of interpretations of how they should behave and act. and that manifests itself in the market. So understanding how that influences you and how you participate in the market is very critical. But also, the market is a mass psychology type experiment. And also, if you're into sports and, obviously looking at betting exchanges, BetEngine, all of that stuff, that's primarily the market that we're interested in. You look at that and you realize that it takes place on the field of play as well. There's the psychology going on there. So it's critically important to understand that. If you have all three of these things, you will do incredibly well. If you learn and work hard to understand them, you will do incredibly well. Two of them, you'll probably do okay. One of them, you're doomed. So it's important to have all of those three things in place if you're going to be an effective trader. So picking up on the psychology of things, I think there are many facets from here that you can delve into. This is probably one of the biggest things that has changed in me in 20 years, is that the way I approach everything has completely changed because I've studied psychology. When I first started trading, I knew what I was doing. I could price up markets. I knew how the markets are likely to behave, and from a mathematical perspective, how that influenced what I could see on the screen and stuff like that. That was where I started, not where I finished. That was where I started. And then I would gradually build on that, improve and refine models, do all of those things. But there were certain things that were just bugging me consistently. Things that didn't seem to make sense, that I could see in 2005, I could see in 2010, 2015, and they're still there in 2020. And I'm thinking, why is that? But the answer came to me about sort of 10 years ago, when I started getting really interested in the psychology of trading and of markets and all of those things. I'd always had an interest in it, but it was only about 10 years ago that I started to dive deep into all of the literature available and listening to lectures and books and buying stuff. And, all of a sudden that really began to form a really strong part of the value system that I use in life and in trading. And it just opened up a whole new world to me, because suddenly I realized that the way that you think is an edge, but also the world doesn't work the way that you think. And the way that markets work are deeply counterintuitive. And by understanding psychology, you can begin to come to terms with that, because you're going to have to unravel all of those bad habits in order to put them back again in the right order. And sometimes when I actively trade a market, people go, well, how did you know that? It's like magic. And the fact is that what I'm looking at is not only the way that the market's working from a quantitative perspective, but I'm also looking at it from a psychological perspective. I'm thinking about what happens here, why is this going to happen, how's it going to influence it, where do I expect it to be, but more importantly, what are people going to do about it? When you get to that level, you learn that thinking is an edge all on itself. So if you understand, or make an effort to really truly understand what's going on in your head and those of the market and of the sports that you're watching, you'll learn that thinking is an edge in itself. Lots of people spend a lot of time data mining. They're trying to get themselves to the point where they start participating in a market. And in order to do that, they spend hours, days, weeks, months, years, decades perhaps, trying to qualify exactly what they should be doing. So they work on tons of data. They eventually come up with something that they feel is going to work. And then they launch themselves into the market, and it's a complete disaster. So what critical thing have they missed off? Well, market participation of a strategy affects the outcome of that strategy. Some of the best things that I've ever discovered have not come through data mining. If you mine data, you look at information that can give you an opinion on what you should be doing within the market, the way that the market works, your tolerance to certain points within the market. It's a variety of different things you can gather from that. I data mine, I model, and it's designed to give me something to play around with, to understand the way that the market works. But the most critical thing for me is active participation. If you put something into the market, even on small stakes, you may discover something that you were completely unaware of. And a lot of the best opportunities that I've created have come around through that process, or sometimes completely by accident. I remember taking the kids to the beach one day when they were young. I quickly knocked up a piece of automation. I modified it quickly before we go, and my wife was going, come on, we need to get down there, I need to beat the traffic. And it was like, and when I was at the beach, I had a quick flick on my phone and I'm thinking, well, that balance doesn't look right. Quickly bring up the PLN and it's like, oh no, I've completely cocked up. I forgot to do this process within there. And it's like, oh no, but it made money. So I stopped it so I could enjoy the rest of the day at the beach. And I went back that night and analysed it. And out of that came a completely new strategy that I had never, ever thought of before. So yeah, active market participation is key to everything that you do. If you're mining a bit of data, start up a piece of automation or something just to test your assumptions to make sure you're not heading down the right path or making a false assumption. And there are lots of things that data mining can throw up that you may not find in the market in terms of a direction. But equally, in the other direction, there are lots of things that active participation will show you that you will never ever see in data mining. So yeah, it's okay to look at spreadsheets, gather data, do all of that stuff, but market participation is the key. Be restless. It's amazing, actually. When I was in a conventional job, one of the things I feared was living the rest of my life with the same role, doing the same thing every year for the rest of my life. I just thought, what a terrible situation that would be. So I decided, and that was one of the reasons that I broke out and did my own thing, was to do something new. But you should be restless and looking for opportunities, looking to expand what you do, and fueling that spirit within inside you, because there are always endless opportunities that are sort of sitting just in front of you. But also, I'm very self-critical in what I do as well. I don't believe that I have it sussed at any particular point. I'm looking at what I do and I'm sort of saying, well, is there a way to improve that? Have I missed something? Sometimes I'll do experiments that are the complete opposite of what I'm currently doing, just to test that something isn't happening there, that somehow I've particularly missed. But one of the things that I've always been keen on doing is not having the same year every year, or not doing the same thing. I'm always constantly searching and looking for an opportunity or a way to vary what I do or to explore a new field. And I'll very often just dive into an individual market situation or area that I've never discovered before. It doesn't have to be trading. It could just be, looking at some particular new area of something that I've never discovered or looked at before. But that sense of restlessness and continuous improvement is something that's been a key part of everything that I do over 20 years. I don't want to live the same year every year for the rest of my life. So I actively look at ways of not doing that. And you'll be amazed at sort of what pops out of the other end when you head down that particular mindset. So I hope that some of those thoughts have been useful for you. You'll probably find that not only are they useful in a particular market, but you may find them useful in life as well. I've learned a lot over the last 20 years. I've learned so much. I've done so much. It's been an incredible journey for me. And I think that there is still plenty more to do. It's difficult to do each one of them justice with just a couple of minutes talking about them. They almost require their own 30-minute video, which probably wouldn't be very popular. But if there's something that you're interested in me talking about a little bit deeper, then leave me a comment and I'll see if I can add it to the list of videos that I could do, or perhaps ask me whenever I do my next live stream to elaborate on particular concepts. But yeah, these are things that I've learned over 20 years. Hopefully you'll be able to find some use for them either in your trading or in general on your life. But whatever you do, I hope that you found some of those points very useful.